Hi, this is Irving Steel, your host of Local Issues. And today we're really excited to have a spiritual and religious leader from the community come and join us. She is the Interim Minister and Reverend down at the Niantic Community Church in Niantic, Connecticut. So welcome, Erica. So great to have you here today.
Thank you. Very nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. And it's impressive. You have lots of different ties to the region. You've raised your family here, and now one of the most important churches in the town, you're leading as the interim reverend.
I feel very honored and privileged to be in this spot. I agree. The Niantic Community Church has had a long and proud history in the region. I was just reading, I've only been there since December 1st. I've been looking at the
You just started then.
I did. I'm 6 weeks in right now.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you. I was just looking at their history. They began in 1719.
Wow, just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's the congregation, what is now the Congregational Church side. And then the Methodists and the Congregational churches joined in the 1950s. To create a stronger congregation together than they had been separately.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And what do you think the Niantic Community Church is known for?
Oh, a lot of things.
Okay.
Many people say they know the church for their summer suppers. The building itself is distinctive. It looks like a boat. It's built to resemble a boat.
Right, going down Pennsylvania Avenue in Niantic, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It is obviously an open, affirming, reconciling congregation. These commitments are important to the congregation for who they are. It means that whoever you are or wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome.
Anybody can go, anybody can attend.
Anybody.
Okay.
Anybody, no matter who you are or where you are. We sometimes say, you might appreciate this, all people are welcome. Not all behaviors, but all people.
All people.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we do expect people to be respectful to one another and to make it safe space. And we hold space together. We create safe space together.
Is there some kind of written code of law or agreed behaviors that you have upon entering?
Oh, that's a great question. No, there's not. What you get is people encouraging one another to be their best.
That's a good start. That's awesome. And it's not often, or maybe more often now, but you don't always see big flags outside of churches. And I think you have maybe one or two big flags outside of your church.
We have panels on the church. They are rainbow panels.
Rainbow panels.
Yeah, I've been kind of interested in this. This is about the fourth UCC church I have served that is, and the UCC language, United Church of Christ, I should not use acronyms, sorry. The United Church of Christ language is open and affirming, and many of those congregations will put a rainbow flag on the sign. The church that I just came from in South Glastonbury had moved away from the flag to just putting a rainbow panel on the sign because flags are a little funny. Flags can come up and come down. You know, there's that childhood game, Capture the Flag.
Yep.
It can be a little provisional around rules around flags, and they wanted to move away from this being a provisional commitment to one that they really embody. So
much more permanent.
Yes, those are wooden panels on the side of the Niantic.
They're not going anywhere.
Church. They're not, and neither is the commitment to make this a welcoming, safe space for the community.
And I think that community element is critical, and that's one thing I think of your church. I remember going to Toastmasters down in the bottom area of the church, and it seems like there's always different events taking place. I went to some land conservation potluck dinner, and you're just so connected to the community, and I feel good, positive things to improve the community.
Yeah. 12-step groups meet
12 steps.
all over the place. We have a lot of spiritual groups and Bible studies happening all throughout the day. The church was originally built, this sort of iteration of it has a number of movable panels, so you can create one large community room or divide it into smaller classrooms. It's very flexible.
That's great. And do you often receive requests of having people or organizations use the building?
Well, more and more since the pandemic is abating. Is that the right word for it?
Yeah.
I think in the pandemic, it was so disappointing when so much connectivity got kind of locked down. But we are emerging, and those things are happening again.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because you think we're such social creatures. I mean, it's in our chemistry and our DNA that we need to connect from time to time in person, and having that location there central in Niantic and supportive of many different groups and different organizations, it's so important to have that there, right?
It is actually, yes, it is. It's much better to have it in that space than in someone's home or a garage. It's, yeah.
And you've been there now 6 weeks, and I'm curious to hear, in those 6 weeks, have you already started to feel that, hey, maybe we could add this to the church, or maybe we need to do this a little differently? Have you started to have some different ideas yet?
What I'm trying to do is to get the congregation to bring forth what their vision for their future church is.
Okay.
And I will say that Advent and Christmas tends to be just its own time, and that's usually enough to get through. But we are coming up right now on our annual meeting, which is a good time to spend time reflecting on the work that we have done, and we'll see where that goes. We'll see how things move forward. One of the big words I've been hearing, and I think this is in the culture as well as in the church, is transparency. We want to make sure that we're effective in what we're doing, and also it's not happening behind closed doors, so that our members and friends understand why we're doing what we're doing and are appropriately invited into that work.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference if people have that trust and respect of a transparent organization. It goes a long way, especially with how different things are happening in the world these days.
Yes, it does. It does. And at a local level, this is something we can do. I'm not sure I can figure out the international politics, but at a local level, we can do this. The people are right here. We can work that out.
That's good. And it sounds like you almost act like the leader, the facilitator, but you work in conjunction with the congregation to bring about these ideas, or if they want changes at all, maybe they don't want a lot of changes.
Yeah, that's harder. It's harder when people say we don't want anything to change.
That's tough.
Yeah, for me, as a minister, I'm not sure the spiritual leader in whose tradition I stand, Jesus, was somebody who was really pushing change, important changes. I'm not sure Jesus was ever like, don't change anything. I'm struggling to come up with that. Well, I don't think it's in the gospel.
Yeah, and especially with seeing how unjust our society is, that with a minimum wage of $12, $15 an hour, and then people still not able to have a livable wage with that amount. Meanwhile, there's people like Jeff Bezos and others, God bless them, they've been incredible entrepreneurs and started incredible companies, but they have billions and billions of dollars. I mean, it feels like that gap between the haves and the have-nots in our society has never been greater.
You are right. Well, I think we go back to the Gilded Age. Is that when the last time was? There was that tremendous imbalance between, as you say, the haves and the have-nots. Yes, but everybody has dignity. Everybody has worth. Everyone is valuable.
And it feels great that the congregation allows all people to come together for that common mission and common goal.
And that's one of the things we do in a congregation, is we bear witness to one another's stories and struggles. Every now and then, those stories and struggles inspire a congregation to really take action and change things. That's one of the things that was behind, years ago now, we founded the Shoreline Soup Kitchens and Pantries.
Oh, great.
And that was...
What is that?
What is it?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked. It is a connected group now of houses of worship, both Jewish and Christian, along the shoreline. I think it runs from here in East Lyme down to Clinton, and they all offer a hot meal as well as pantry items to anybody who needs them. And that began at my church in Essex. My people knew people in the community who didn't have the social services and support that they needed to stay there. So what we were really witnessing was that people would be referred by the social service folks in Essex to Middletown or New Haven to go get services there. So that displaces a person who's already in crisis. And you're like, we can do better than that. So today that is a major institution serving millions of meals along the shoreline.
Millions of meals.
And I hope that you invite them to come and share with you, because it's a really good ministry. But that grew out of a church noticing the people in their community and bearing witness to their stories and taking action, which is part of what we do. Not all of what we do, but part of what we do in communities of faith.
Definitely. I mean, part of it is talking and kind of bringing about these ideas or talking about these issues, but then the next step of actually starting the Shoreline Soup Kitchens and starting that action element is a critical piece of all of that.
Yes.
And how many churches or temples are organized right now in that organization? Do you have a rough idea? It's many.
I stepped out of leadership after the first 4 years, and it's been going, I'm going to show how old I am now, it's been going, I think, over 30 years now.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know the statistics about all of it, but I do know it's up and down the shoreline. And it's got its own thing going. It's a wonderful ministry. But it comes out of people wanting to make a difference in the lives of their neighbors. You know people who need support. We all need support.
Who doesn't need support?
If
you're a human, you need support.
Yeah. And it's not all soup kitchen support that we need, but that's what we do in communities of faith, is to see one another and what's going on, and to offer support or to be supported.
And maybe that's one of the hardest things for many of us to do, is to maybe admit or confess to different people that, hey, I'm having a hard time right now. I really need some help and support. And you having your doors open to anybody maybe makes that a little bit easier for people to reach out to you or reach out to the congregation and say, hey, we don't have enough money for food this week, or we have some other issue going on. Because that is a hard issue to bring up, to come out to the organization.
It is. I try to normalize some of that. We're all mortal. We are all flawed. Being reminded of that regularly in a worship setting or in a small group setting can help people get a little bit over some of that reticence. For regular church attenders, most of the time you're fine. And in the times that you're fine, you can offer support to others. But some of the times you need help. I remember when my father died, it was a sudden death, and I was devastated. Several of the people whose funerals I had done in the previous year came back and just reminded me of what we had shared previously, reminded me of the words I had used, and I felt like my soul was restored.
It's
we're
amazing.
all vulnerable sometimes. We all need support sometimes.
Yeah.
So being there for others is kind of a way to build the social fabric.
Definitely. And it's something, if we live as humans, we go through these different ups and downs. We have these traumas, we have these losses. Of course, many positive things too, lots of gain, lots of happiness, hopefully throughout our lives as well. But as we progress through our lives, we have these different encounters, and having a community of people there to support you and lift you back up or push you over that next hill is vital, I think. And potentially it's something that, as our society continues to become more digitized and maybe sending a text message instead of a quick call, or a post on Facebook instead of meeting up for a coffee, maybe it's becoming more and more important for communities like what you're leading right now. Have you seen, because you've been doing interim ministry since 2007, I believe, have you seen a decent amount of changes over those years?
A huge amount of change in the way that we are doing ministry now, as opposed to just since 2007, which seems like that's not so long, but I guess it's been a little while.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Fair enough. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You know, we do online worship now, having been through the pandemic and having had to learn that skill set. And that's not going anywhere. It's wonderful that we're able to include people who otherwise would be shut out by illness, by travel, by an inability to be present. There's an awful lot of literature right now about the decline of church attendance in the last years. The baby boom generation in particular has not been a group that has enthusiastically participated in church life. However, many people are becoming more and more mindful that community life is important. And houses of worship offer a kind of community life which is completely different from all other community institutions. They are intergenerational, and nobody's evaluating you. You know, you can come as you are, for who you are, and be welcome there. You can challenge other people when you object to what they're saying. You can be challenged. You can offer things as well as receive blessing when you need it. So.
That's great. So for people who might be interested in your congregation, how does that work? If someone wants to join, but they're kind of reticent or kind of reluctant to take that step to go on a Sunday, I imagine, how does that work? Do you have a welcome committee? Do you have people who kind of help welcome people and make them feel warm and welcome?
We do our best to make new folks feel warm and welcome.
Yeah.
Of course, every church has its own kind of normative ways of doing what they do, but we are always wanting to welcome new folks to the community. Some people will call ahead and say, is it okay if I come? And the answer is always yes.
Always yes.
It's
Anybody.
always yes. And you can wear whatever you're wearing. Some people say, what do I wear? Just wear what you've got. That's fine. Some people dress up when they come to church. Lots of folks don't. I often tell parents, you can bring your kids in the pajamas. It's fine. Just come.
That's what they're wearing to school these days. So.
That's true. That's right. Yeah. Spirit Week is pajama week.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And I understand that you had a big trip this last year. Do you want to share a little bit about the trip that you took?
I did. My husband and I were able to go to Israel and Palestine with the Tree of Life Educational Fund, which is connected with the Old Lyme Congregational Church. And it was a life-changing trip. I was so happy to be able to do it in community. The group of us that went were about 1/3 white Christians and 2/3 people of color who are Muslim.
Interesting.
So we had a connection with the mosque in Berlin, and we spent a couple of months before we left reading books together, meeting together, getting to know each other, so that we would be prepared for what we saw. David Good, who is the Minister Emeritus at the Old Lyme Congregational Church, told us 3 things. Prepare, learn as much as you can about Israel and Palestine on your own before you go. And
is that what you were reading? You were reading books about Israel and Palestine?
Yes, we were reading nonfiction and fiction. My husband and I both watched documentaries together. We got together in small groups and saw a couple of movies and listened to some panelists so that we would just begin to attune our ear to what was happening there. And then they encouraged us while we were there not to try to fix all the problems, but just to learn and be open to what we were encountering. And then when we got back, they charged us to tell about what we saw.
Okay.
And I was surprised by so many things. It was very meaningful for me in that I have been imagining that land my whole adult life as I've been reading and studying scripture. I've been kind of imagining the geography and what it looks like, and to be able to be there just made it come alive. They sometimes call the land of Israel and Palestine the 5th gospel.
Oh, wow.
Because the land speaks. It just speaks about, it bears another kind of witness to what was going on there. I did not understand until I was there the kind of bias that exists in the media. I think just necessarily because we're not there, we're here. So I didn't really see that until I was there. I was very surprised at the UN has called what's going on with the Palestinians, effectively, it's apartheid. And I didn't understand that until I saw it. Didn't understand the checkpoints. We were told we were not allowed to photograph anybody at the checkpoints, the Israeli military at the checkpoints, because, well, they carry very large guns. And photographing them was not okay, but they are everywhere, and every time you go across a border, you need to go through a checkpoint. As Americans, it was not hard. It was a little harder for some of our American friends who were people of color, but they had American passports, so that was fine. It was an amazing journey. It did feel like the place was just about to go to war. I've not traveled someplace that was just about to go to war, so I wasn't sure if that was a feeling I should be trusting, but it turns out it was. It's just a tinderbox.
Yeah, unbelievable. I was there in 2007, and I was amazed standing there, and there was a church next to a synagogue, next to a mosque, pretty much all on top of each other in the middle of Israel. And the major religions are all there, and U2 has the song, of course, we have religion so we can love and hate, and you just hope that these people that are so devout in their religion can find some way to live in this world together. I mean, I don't know if you had any takeaways from that. And then October 7th now, I mean, if you were leading the world, what would your solution be?
Wow. Wow. If I were leading the world. So I don't think religion is the fundamental problem there. It's politics, the politicians. My understanding of the way we got where we are is that 1948 was a very unstable setup. The people, the Palestinians who were living there, while they welcomed the Jews to the area, were not given appropriate places to move to. we visited a refugee camp while we were there, and there were 3 generations of refugees living there.
Wow.
So it was their grandfather who had been displaced in Jerusalem that had brought them there, and they were still living there. I think the political problems are political. The religious people respected each other very much and really talked about how much they wanted to get along. I do think people want that fundamentally.
And you hear stories of people on different sides all fighting for that as well.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's a great point, that maybe from the religious perspective, hopefully it will happen if we continue to pray for peace and do whatever possibly we can to make that happen, because a lot of people all around the world are suffering because of this.
Yes, yes. It does mean, I think, sharing power, doesn't it? It means trusting people.
A lot comes down to trust.
Yeah.
And we just have a couple minutes. I mean, we could talk a lot more about that topic, but just with the couple minutes that we have left, maybe on a little bit more of a positive note, and maybe it's connected to everything in the Middle East right now as well, is the power of maybe religion and spirituality for our internal well-being and overall well-being. I would love to hear if you have any thoughts or ideas on how religion and spirituality can maybe help us in that regard.
I think religion is really underappreciated in those areas. I'm glad that you're bringing it up. I know that healthcare professionals talk about, what are you doing for your spirit? And there's so much that we do in religious communities that support spiritual well-being. You know, for Christians, we talk about forgiveness, and the practice of forgiving people is a practice that draws you into less and less stress, feelings of well-being. You gain community by practicing forgiveness. Asking deeper questions also kind of brings us into a more connected way of being in the world. And then increasing our social networks, even in very superficial ways, has huge impacts down the line. So all of those things, I think, are some of the small parts that make up the well-being that comes. A practice of prayer, much like a practice of meditation, gets rid of anxiety, helps us to handle difficult problems in our lives. So there's a lot there. It's very underappreciated, but it's effective.
I think it's definitely effective. And there was a poet, an author, I forget who exactly it said, before we have world peace, we need to have this internal peace first. It kind of starts with me, it starts with you, it starts one individual at a time, and then it builds to that community, and it just has that ripple effect even larger. Do you agree with that?
I do. I do think that's true. Also, I hope that we get world peace, even if we don't all have individual peace for ourselves.
Yes, definitely. Well, I'm so grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule as interim Reverend down at Niantic Community Church to join us today, and hope to see you on